Great. All right. Well, welcome everybody, and it's really lovely to see all of you here. Welcome to this session of Educateurs Sans Frontières on building local relationships, Montessori in an interdependent world. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Elske Voermans. I'm the EsF coordinator at AMI, and together with my EsF team, Jackie, Victoria and Elise, who are also here today, we prepared this session for you, and yeah, we really hope it supports you in your work, and yeah, or that it inspires you somehow. So today's program, we will start with a short presentation about EsF by me, and then we'll listen to a presentation by Victoria on building local relationships. Then we'll go into breakout discussions in smaller groups where we discuss the guiding questions that we also sent you, and we'll put them in the chat again. And then we'll all come back together for a plenary reflection and some closing remarks. So all in all, we hope that it will take about 1 hour and 45 minutes. So first, shortly about EsF. So some people might already know a lot about it. Some people might be quite new to it. So I'm going to explain a little bit about it. And to do that, I would first like to name the 3 pillars of AMI. So the work of AMI is based on 3 pillars: legacy, capacity, and outreach. And the outreach pillar focuses on Montessori for social change, and Educateurs Sans Frontières, or EsF, is part of the outreach pillar of AMI. So it's a division of AMI, and it's a network of Montessori practitioners working with communities, governments, and other partners to advance human development. EsF's mission and vision is to inspire and connect diverse Montessori initiatives worldwide through tools of networking, mentorship, and resources, guiding us towards sustainability, expansion, and replication. EsF was established in 1999 by Renilde Montessori. She was the granddaughter of Maria Montessori, and she wanted to re-establish and strengthen the link to her grandmother's social mission, as Maria Montessori was actually a social activist and an advocate for human rights and for children's rights. So she envisioned the Educateurs Sans Frontières as ambassadors for the child, and she described them as educators without boundaries, able and willing to go wherever their presence is required, never to intrude, not to indoctrinate, but to help and encourage others to learn to rediscover the wise and ancient plan for wholesome growth, with which all humans are endowed. EsF works with a sustainable and community-based approach, as we believe that people are the experts of their own lives, the context where they live, their own needs, opportunities, and challenges. And therefore, we think that community involvement is essential in creating a sustainable impact. So we believe building local capacity is really key to the development of independent initiatives that are sensitive to the local context and capable of achieving sustainable change. EsF promotes the social mission of Montessori and therefore takes an approach that is based on Montessori principles. And it strives to explore innovative ways in which Montessori principles can be applied, while still guaranteeing their quality and authenticity. So initiatives within the EsF network all work independently, were established independently, but they adhere to these same principles, and they demonstrate that Montessori principles can be applied in all kinds of contexts beyond the classroom and also beyond just children. So EsF connects change makers who are committed to promote the rights of the child and advance human development. And its global network includes people from many different countries and backgrounds and fields of expertise. It strengthens and broadens this network through preparing individuals to carry out the broader mission, the broader social mission of Montessori in their own region. EsF also functions as a social movement that strives to obtain recognition for the rights of the child throughout the world, irrespective of race, religion, political and social beliefs. And EsF supports Montessori initiatives through mentorships, pedagogical knowledge, and a network of experts. And it provides inspiration by highlighting innovative and diverse initiatives from its network. As I said, EsF is a network of Montessori initiatives and individuals who are committed to support human development through Montessori principles. And the initiatives within the network work independently, but adhere to the EsF principles of community engagement, sustainability, and Montessori, of course. And they typically focus on underserved and under-resourced communities. So how you can get involved in this work really depends on your personal situation. So who are you, where are you, and what does your region or your network look like? And where do you see opportunities to apply Montessori principles in support of human development in your region? And also, how can you contribute to this work? So the way people get involved in EsF can be really diverse, and it is really diverse, actually. Some people might open a Montessori preschool in an under-resourced area, but others might start an after-school club for children, or work with children in a small community center, or in an orphanage. And again, others might use their knowledge of human development to work with the elderly. So there's many different ways to apply Montessori principles. And to support your involvement, you can connect to the EsF network and participate in events like, for example, this one, which will hopefully provide you with connections, inspirations, and tools. So coming back to this EsF network, it is a bit of a difficult concept to grasp. I think there's sometimes a little bit of misunderstanding, and we get a lot of questions about it. It's not super easy to get your head around, so I'm gonna try to explain it with a couple of visuals. So what we aim to do is to build and strengthen this EsF global network in order to support local impact. So the global EsF community consists out of individuals from all different regions who also work with communities in their own regions, because they are part of a local network and of local communities. And as these individuals are both part of the global EsF community as well as their local network, there's a constant interaction between the global and the local elements of EsF. So one feeds into the other, and learnings can be taken from both sides. And what we hope to support through the facilitation of this global EsF community is the creation of regional EsF networks which can support Montessori work in the region, but also connections between these regional networks. So eventually we aim to create a network with many interconnections which can support, or through which people can support each other in furthering the Montessori work in their own region or their own community. So to facilitate the creation of these interconnections and also to support the global EsF network, we at the AMI head office, we focus on 4 main areas. So learning, connection, resources, and inspiration. And these elements, of course, all relate to each other and also overlap in different ways. So we have found this model quite helpful for visualizing the ways in which we support the ESF network, and also to see how the different activities and tools we provide fit into these areas of focus. So to give an example of what this looks like for us, we, for example, share stories and updates from initiatives within the network to inspire. We provide tools and templates, reading and also videos as resources that can be used by the ESF community. We organize gatherings like, for example, this one, so online, but also in person, to facilitate connections between people. And we provide a platform for shared inquiry through which people can learn from each other and from each other's experiences. And we aim to bring all of this together on a community platform, which I will also get back to towards the end of this session. So as I said, we have found this diagram or this model quite helpful, and we think it could also be interesting for you in mapping out the network of the initiative that you are involved in or that you are considering to get involved in. So thinking about the questions, where are you in this diagram? You might be more on the learning and resources side, or maybe you're more in the inspiration and connection sides of things. Or maybe you're providing resources and inspiration. So if you can be in very different ways contributing to an initiative, and you don't need to do all of them at the same time, but it can be very helpful to think about other people who also relate to the initiative, and to understand where they are in this diagram and what they can contribute, and also how to build relationships with them. So we will get back to this question in our breakout discussions as well. And I'll now give the floor to Victoria, as she will continue to present on building local relationships. Go ahead, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Elske. Go ahead and share my screen here. I just want to, I really want to thank Educateurs Sans Frontières for this wonderful opportunity. And just to give you a little bit of background, Elske invited me to be a little bit involved in this team, and it's been a wonderful experience for me. And as many of you know, I've also been conducting a research study with Montessori initiatives around the world. I'm so grateful to ESF and to all the individuals who've contributed to this study. It has been such a meaningful and enlightening experience for me, and I'm excited to share some of that with you today in talking about building local relationships and strengthening our capacity within our local communities. I have designed this presentation with the hopes that you will find something useful and to be inspired in your own personal work. I want to point out, though, that I am an information gatherer. So I have gathered information, interpreted it, and now I'm sharing it. But everything that I have to share comes from the wisdom and experiences of individuals like yourself. And for those who contributed to this study, I am so deeply grateful. So to begin, I'll just give a brief overview of the study that I did. More information about this can actually be found in the talk that I gave for AMI, the Global Path of Montessori, last month. But to give you just kind of a brief overview, after working closely with Montessori communities here in the United States, I interviewed individuals all over the world who are using Montessori philosophy, principles, practices, and materials to support the development of children in their local areas. These Montessori sites varied in geography, culture, and application. What I learned is something I suspect you already know, that Montessori philosophy guides individuals to uplift and support their local communities in many different ways that go well beyond a classroom setting. Here are just a few of the examples that I've encountered. As you can see here, the participants in this study were using Montessori in a broad spectrum of community spaces. Some of these were on a very individual level with personal and one-to-one interactions, or in families and homes. Then there was a tremendous variety of using Montessori in spaces where we typically think of Montessori being, such as in school settings. However, in some of the broader community spaces where adults mingled, as well as at an organizational level, I also found that individuals were applying Montessori principles to guide interactions and engagements within their communities that honored and supported human needs and tendencies. Now, I want to point out that the word community is not always considered in the same way across locations and cultures. Because I will be using that word a lot as we talk about building relationships today, I want to describe a bit about what it means in this or for this presentation. Community generally refers to some way that people are tied together. It might be through location, such as coexisting in the same natural environment. It might be through shared beliefs or in some other way. But in this presentation, I want us to consider communities or groups where we feel a shared sense of belonging, as well as also really thinking about our local areas and some of the persons, groups of people, or organizations that we may not be as familiar with. Because we're focused today on building local relationships, I want to draw your attention to this model. This is a model of implementation that I constructed from the data in this study. It represents the processes that I found to be common in Montessori initiatives, even though these initiatives were very different from one another. As I noted earlier, there was a broad spectrum of ways that Montessori philosophy and principles were used, but these were key aspects that they held in common. This model illustrates what I found to be an ongoing cycle of growth as initiatives identified their local needs and challenges and then leaned into Montessori principles and practices to address them. Central to all of these processes was building a support network. This part of the process was absolutely crucial to the development, growth, and sustainment of each Montessori initiative. It was the support network that often served as the guiding force for local adaptation or integrating Montessori principles and practices in ways that honored local language, customs, cultural practices, and values. It was also this support network that guided initiatives through the challenges of tackling logistics or taking care of business, such as finding a building site, acquiring financial resources, working with local authorities to meet regulation requirements, and so on. Importantly, this support network was also the key to recalibration or making adjustments when hard times came along. It was often within the support network or by strengthening the support network that practitioners connected with mentors or other Montessori professionals, as well as local community members or parents to help them solve some of their challenges. For example, there were instances when differences between local norms and Montessori practices created tension within families or community members, or when it was difficult to see how to apply Montessori principles to the learning needs of students. In such instances as these, individuals brought in or turned to their support network for solutions, ideas, and support. Now, I always like to take a moment to step back and reflect on why a good idea actually matters, especially for our own local circumstances. So why does it really matter to you or to me to talk about these support networks? Well, none of us do the work that we do alone. Whether local or global, we're an interdependent society. And as we build and strengthen our local relationships, we tap into knowledge and resources and strength that can truly magnify the work that we do. One of the most important things that I learned in this study is the need to integrate both Montessori principles and community ways of life into our Montessori initiatives. When we think of Montessori principles, that really emphasizes what we have to contribute to our communities. And when we consider community ways of life, I feel that this emphasizes what we have to learn about or learn from our communities or the local areas and spaces where we are implementing our efforts. Another way of looking at it is to recognize that Montessori principles, practices, and methods can really work within community contexts in a symbiotic relationship when we make intentional efforts to build and strengthen relationships. We need our communities and local relationships in order to support and strengthen our Montessori work. When Montessori initiatives are embraced and loved by their local families and community members, they really thrive. To make this happen, we need to build bridges of understanding with others in our local area. Similarly, even if we do not have a physical Montessori environment, our communities can greatly benefit from the ways that Montessori principles can be infused in our work, no matter what spaces we are standing in or who we are serving with. In other words, the Montessori initiatives that we develop are really undergirded by strong local relationships. And similarly, our local communities can be strengthened and supported as we discover various ways to infuse our local relationships and activities with Montessori principles. We support and strengthen each other in this symbiotic way when we keep conversations going and find common ground to serve and support children and families. So how is this done? The wonderful contributors to this study shared experiences and examples that emphasize 3 key steps. First, look for opportunities to serve. Second, take the time to really listen to others. Seek to understand them, their ways of life, their values, their beliefs and customs. And third, start where you are at. I want to focus especially on these first 2, serve and seek to understand, as I highlight examples that came from this study. So if we return to this main process model, I want to draw our attention back to the implementing and adjusting phases. I found these to be key steps or part of the process of developing or engaging in a Montessori initiative. As I noted earlier, building local relationships was absolutely central to the entire process. I want to highlight some of the lessons that I've learned from this study about how we can build those relationships to support our work. So let's focus first on how local relationships and support networks supported initiatives in taking care of business. This involved things like finding funding, preparing an environment, meeting regulations and requirements, and other logistical matters. In this context, I found that when handling these challenges, initiatives either found ways to make it work or sometimes had to make some compromises. Let's look first at making it work. In making it work, I found that initiatives leaned into community members for help and were interested and open to learning from others and their ideas. Some of the ways these were manifested are highlighted here. For instance, finding local craftsmen who could make adjustments to materials on hand or build new furniture to prepare the environment. Relying on community members to help find local and available resources for materials, and inviting others to share their talents, skills, cultural knowledge, and language to beautifully support the initiative with what was locally available. Of course, when we are developing an initiative, we want to honor and reflect Montessori principles, practices, and methods as best we can, but sometimes a compromise is necessary. For instance, sometimes in order for an initiative to grow and remain sustainable, we have to lean into our communities for understanding and to find common ground. It is important to exercise patience and allow time for others to understand and appreciate the Montessori philosophy that we are trying to implement. Sometimes that needs to happen a few steps at a time and not all at once. And sometimes we need to adjust to local needs and circumstances. For example, some of the initiatives I learned from really relied on families and other teaching curriculum to keep learning going during the COVID-19 pandemic. They also made intentional and patient efforts to build bridges of understanding with local authorities and officials, as well as working with community leaders to help meet common goals. One of the most important areas that building local relationships supports is in adapting the ways we implement Montessori philosophy to support and reflect the cultural interests and local needs of our communities. To design initiatives that will best serve the children and families in your local areas, these key areas were really important. Know your community. Know the children's families, their language, their customs, their beliefs, their values. Invite community members to take part in what you are doing. Include community elders to be a part of your initiative and play significant roles, and be sensitive to differences. Some examples that initiatives used were taking more than a year to plan so that they could include everyone in their community in the planning and development of a project so that it would truly serve and reflect the children and families in that area. They also intentionally sought out members of their community from all walks of life and who played various roles within the community. For initiatives that were serving vulnerable or marginalized populations, it was especially important to be sensitive to their needs their past experiences, and then to only move forward when those groups were ready. Other important examples included using the Montessori initiative to build relationships and trust by strengthening and supporting local values, customs, and culture, taking time to get to know the diverse backgrounds of children and their families, and not making assumptions about members of their community. Sometimes adjustments need to be made, and a common challenge in this area was experiencing tension when Montessori principles and practices were different from local expectations or values. This might happen in education spaces, but it can also happen in families or within local regulations and expectations. It can also occur within our own Montessori communities. I realized from this study that it was important to recognize that these differences exist simply because there are different ways of life. I learned from the examples of my participants that instead of pressuring others to understand Montessori principles, it was very important to lay groundwork of understanding, and then over time and with patience, explaining the differences and why we feel Montessori principles are so important. Some of the ways that the initiatives in this study did this was simply by being patient in integrating Montessori principles slowly into the spaces that they were serving in. Others found common values and examples, established those as the priority, and then helped their community members see how Montessori principles supported those goals and values. Others found creative ways to help others in their community gain a better understanding of Montessori philosophy and practices through online videos, through offering parenting information nights that were sometimes not Montessori specific, or introducing the materials and concepts of a prepared environment to local families in interactive ways, and then allowing the families to choose for themselves whether they wanted it in their community. In building relationships, there were a few other really important bits of understanding that I brought from this study. Montessori principles change the power dynamics between children and adults by giving children more autonomy over their learning and development. And this can be frightening to others who are worried that children won't learn or experience everything they need to. It can be confusing to others who haven't understood the capacity children have as well. So just understanding these and being patient with this can also help us in building and strengthening relationships. Finally, we often have a desire to implement Montessori the right way, but we don't always have all the resources we need, such as training, understanding of principles, or how to meet a particular challenge. In these situations, we can build and strengthen relationships by remembering that the spiritual preparation of the adult is a journey, not a destination. It is important to be patient with ourselves, and it is important to reach out to others to support our efforts to grow and improve in our work. For instance, some found greater support by making connections with mentors, coaches, teacher trainers, guides, or other Montessorians locally and globally. Organizations such as EsF provided networks of relationships that enhance support in their local work. Connecting with others in their local area, even if they were not familiar with Montessori, also helped individuals overcome challenges. And initiatives that really leaned into family support by including them in meaningful ways and giving them significant roles found that their work was lightened and magnified. Finally, I want to focus on this last important point: to start where you are at. When we reflect on the myriad of examples where Montessori initiatives are happening, or where individuals are finding ways to apply Montessori principles to serve their local communities, it can be both inspiring and daunting to think about what we can do in our local areas and spaces. We may have ideas for how to be involved in individual ways in supporting parenting in home environments, creating a Montessori learning site, getting involved in community organizations, or in broader organizational endeavors. But we can't do everything at once. And each stage of life comes with new and different opportunities. In building relationships and making local connections, it is important to remember balance and our own capacity. At the same time, considering the different spaces we can contribute in can actually help us discover capacity that we did not know we had. We may develop relationships where small beginnings can lead to enormous outcomes. I saw that many times in the examples that were shared with me. For instance, one individual shared that her discovery of Montessori started from a conversation on a bus with a stranger who was willing to share what she knew. That led to implementing Montessori in conflict areas, including an orphanage and a primary school. Stories like this were not unusual. When we use and share Montessori principles and practices in many different spaces, we also inspire the work of others. So how do we find this balance? From what I've learned in my work thus far, I recommend standing firmly in your own community. Think about where you are already planted. What spaces are you already serving in? What areas would work well for you to branch out in? You may be surprised as you reflect on your day-to-day interactions and activities that there are opportunities in front of you to connect with others, learn from them, and then discover opportunities where Montessori principles can be applied. As we reflect on that, I'll share just a few examples of how individuals in this study found ways to support their local communities and spaces with Montessori principles. Let's start with individual areas. Individual contexts often included workspaces and volunteer work. It might be their personal preparation, as well as one-on-one mentoring and support. For example, some individuals used Montessori principles to make a difference in the lives of youth that they were tutoring. Others used the principles they'd learned from Montessori to identify needs and provide better support to children and families in their volunteer work, or to really support those that they worked alongside with in their workspaces. Others found themselves teaching in non-Montessori environments, but still found ways to implement principles to enhance their work and to teach those that they were working with. Home contexts included nearly endless ways to support both parents and home environments. Sometimes these were associated with Montessori schools, and sometimes they weren't. There are many organizations that strive to support families and parents where we can share our efforts. For instance, really knowing families by being connected with their day-to-day struggles and successes really enabled Montessori guides to support the home environment with Montessori principles. Sometimes these principles were shared through other community groups, such as parenting playgroups, community cafes, and parenting education classes. And sometimes they were just shared in the day-to-day interactions with parents whose children attended their school. Using social media or online platforms to share examples of how to implement Montessori at home was also very helpful. When we think of learning environments, it's important to consider opportunities that we may not realize are in front of us. For instance, although formal Montessori training guides us to focus on implementing authentic Montessori learning environments, sometimes this possibility is not within our reach. But even if it is not a Montessori school, we can recognize potential learning environments when we open our eyes to see the institutions and organizations around us that are creating their own learning spaces. So learning environment contexts might include formal or informal Montessori schools, or it may be that we can build relationships and use Montessori principles in non-Montessori settings, such as schools or early child care centers, family cooperatives, community services, and religious organizations. Some ways of building relationships highlighted in this area included supporting community efforts to construct and provide informal learning centers, such as an internally displaced persons community, refugee communities, and mobile schools. Others included building orphanages, creating Montessori environments in prison childcare spaces, implementing practices in a developmental center, and so on. Another important way of building relationships in this area was inviting parents and members from the community, such as community elders, to play a significant part of the learning environment. Learning environments can also be a center point for community projects and supporting others' efforts in your local area. Community contexts provide wonderful opportunities to connect with others and to create bridges of understanding. These might include community organizations, emergency response efforts, adult groups, or spaces within our local area, elderly or healthcare facilities, and community-wide projects that are focused on families and our children. All of these can provide spaces where we can increase understanding and find ways where Montessori principles can be applied to support children and families. For instance, some of the contributors to this study found opportunities to serve in their community organizations and to apply Montessori principles that improved practices and interactions with children. They found opportunities to create healing and comforting spaces for young children who had experienced traumatic events and to provide relief for struggling parents. They implemented Montessori principles and practices in healthcare facilities, including with the elderly. They organized community events and activities, such as an after-school children's club, using Montessori as a fundamental worldview. and they provided opportunities for the children in their community to have a voice and to participate in meaningful ways. Finally, you may find that your stage of life leads you to be more involved in a broader organizational level. For participants in this study, these spaces included policy and political activities, engaging with local governments, participating in community leadership, applying Montessori philosophy in their administrative roles. They engaged in a myriad of advocacy efforts and participated in regional organizations and Montessori affiliations that helped them connect with others inside and outside of the Montessori community. For instance, some of their work entailed just getting to know policymakers or local authorities on a personal level to gain understanding and to share ideas. For one, it meant running for political office. For others, they found ways to advocate through writing or providing information to other Montessori initiatives in person and virtually. So as I wrap up, I want to return to the circles that Elske shared with you because I think they're really relevant in knowing where we might make contributions. For instance, maybe what we can do right now is simply make connections and build relationships. Or maybe it is most important that we step back and learn from others. Maybe we have resources to share or ideas and encouragement to offer. So I would encourage you to look at these circles as opportunities both within the ESF community, but also in your local area as you think about initiatives that you can take to build relationships with others. Whatever our role and wherever we are at, we can contribute to the global mission of ESF, supporting children and strengthening families by finding ways to serve and learn where we are planted. Thank you so much for your time and for this opportunity. And if you want to stay in touch or contribute your own ideas, stories, and examples, please reach out to me or message me in the chat. I know I'm still catching up on some of those from the last talk, but I definitely want to hear from you. I invite your feedback.
Thank you so much, Victoria. That was great. Thank you. So we'll now almost go into breakout rooms. I will just quickly share my screen to show you the questions. If I can get there. Yes, there we go. Right, so we will discuss these questions in our discussion groups. Please feel, or I would like you to know that you're all very welcome here. So also if you're, just starting to think about a Montessori initiative, or when you have loads of experience, all of your input and thoughts are super relevant and welcome. So please feel free to share. To see all of you back here. I hope you've had wonderful conversations with each other. I would like to take about 10 minutes to give one of each group the opportunity to reflect on what you discussed during your conversation. So I will just name the groups, and then if one of you would like to speak up, please go ahead. I think we need to keep it a little bit short because I wouldn't want to take up too much of your time. So about 1-2 minutes per group would be great. So group one, is there someone who would like to
I'm group one. I was nominated to speak. First of all, I have to say how humbled I was by the group and the extraordinary work that is happening out there. It's incredible. We had a representation from Vietnam, from Kenya. Someone was from Canada, from Amsterdam. We talked about sports in Montessori and how people are getting trained to be Montessori coaches for sports and how important that is for our school communities. And we talked about the work that's happening in Vietnam with Montessori and the initiatives happening in there. And then we spent a lot of time just talking to the representation from Kenya and 2 schools that were just sharing with us what they go through and how hard it is to get the children to come to school because the parents aren't very supportive of it because they need them to help walk the animals and find the animals and do the work of the family. But we spent a lot of our time looking at the materials that they handmade to create these environments in a community that is very poor and they don't have the funding coming in. And it was beautiful, beautiful work, beautiful materials. And we talked about them, possibly giving a little workshop or a webinar to help people understand how this can be done. You can do it without a lot of money. And so it was a beautiful conversation. And I'd like you to just speak up a little bit about what you do in Vietnam, because it was so much I couldn't say it all. So if you can say something about what you're working on, that'd be great. Oh, you're muted, Mai.
Sorry, everyone. I think Cassie forgot to talk about her own work. So I think I should leave the honor to her.
You're muted, Cassie.
I just help schools in the United States really help their leaders be culturally responsive in their communities so that they are meeting the families and children where they need. And I have started this initiative of courageous conversation. I'm really teaching faculty and staff how to communicate with each other, how to communicate with families, so they can have those hard conversations about not only their children, but also about diversity, equity, inclusion, and about how to be respectful and move the Montessori work forward by having honest conversations. And I also just talked about the work I'm doing with elderly and dementia. But Mai, I really want you to talk about what you do in Vietnam.
Do we have time?
Just briefly, just briefly.
A minute, always.
My first ESF assembly was in Texas since 2011. So I see many friendly and familiar faces from that assembly, and maybe Jackie and Jennifer, Victoria, whom I have a chance to work with at the very beginning, and then Susan Stephenson, with whom we collaborate in the publication of her book in Vietnamese, and Victoria I had the chance to communicate with, and who else? The person I met at the very beginning, 2009, Dr. Sylvia Dubovoy, at the MI meeting with Renee and Lynn and Vidya Shankar, who very recently have helped us in one of the workshops to the community in Vietnam on Zoom. So many friends that I've seen today, and new friends as well. So thank you so much for today's opportunity. I just briefly summarize what we have been trying to do. It has been a long journey since 2011. And personally, I have tried my best to introduce AMI in Vietnam. And since 2012, we had a number of AMI courses. We tried to introduce a Dr. Montessori education approach to as many people as possible through the publication of all the Vietnamese translation of her works. And now we're working on the 12th title in Vietnamese in collaboration with Montessori Pearson, with Alexander Henny. And we also start a non-profit alumni, not specific alumni group in Vietnam. It's called Vietnam AMI Montessori Initiative. Even though it says AMI, it's open to everyone, trained from various sources, from various venues in Montessori. Everyone who are interested, parents, educators, administrators, and we have taken advantage of the Zoom technology during COVID-19 to reach as many people as possible through community workshops by working out with trainers and friends who are very versed and trained in Montessori through the online workshops, which everyone can attend to make the outreach and the development of Montessori education to be widely shared at a deeper level to the community and the society in the country. And so we hope to learn a lot from everyone here, how to go about it, and you know, any collaborations or any support are welcome. But at the same time, there is something else that I like to mention, that we not only look after the you know, the education development in Vietnam, but we also gather the supports from our community through donation to children from the ravaged countries affected by the war, by the wars around the world, and also children from communities who are affected by the climate change. And so we also contribute, I mean, like gather contributions from our alumni and our communities so that we can donate and contribute to help children very recently in Ukraine and in flood affected areas as well. So we are living in an interconnected world. So anything which affects children in any parts in the world also affects us. So that's something we would like to share with you, and we also would like to learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mai, and thank you, Kathy, also for summarizing your conversation. Group 2, is there anyone who would like to speak for Group 2?
Allison.
Yeah. We didn't talk about who was gonna talk. Okay, I'm happy to. Yes, full to be with people from all over. We had representation from Ghana and the Philippines and Afghanistan and California and the university realm from Washington State. And there were programs for 0 to 3 and 3 to 6, and then university. We talked a lot about the challenges we face in our different environments, which tended to focus on support for the guides, both training as well as resources when materials are not available. And then we also talked about how the challenges in communicating some of the Montessori principles to the community.
Alison, your internet is not very, I think your connection is not very good, so maybe someone from your group can take over for a little bit.
Was in the group. Hi, Elise. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see beautiful people that I know so very dear to my heart. So it's a pleasure to see all of you. And I think Alison was talking about an idea that she had, so I want to just convey to you. She had an idea about how we can do something like video on video to get to communities. She's in Afghanistan. And there are countries in which it's very difficult even to work and to send more trainers or teachers. So she was thinking about maybe we could just do some more videos and to get to the people and how we can all together have those resources. It was everyone was there, and Abigail in Ghana also, she was saying how difficult it is for people to get videos or to have an internet. And also Nancy's doing a wonderful job also in Philippines. And Catherine, that I think she has a lot of, she will have a lot of support because she can do things in organizations in which they are trying to do now something similar. And I think the idea of Alison was exactly that, how we can just, because she says that sometimes you can have a video and she has maybe a presentation for her teacher, and then she can do that in Afghanistan because she cannot get there. So I think it's a good idea for everyone to see very short, maybe short, clear videos about the presentations. And I spoke about one of our for me, the most important is order. And wherever you are, no matter how poor, no matter how difficult, is try to think about the children. It's not the environment of the adult, it's the environment of the child. So try to avoid so many things to put in, because even in the tiny little corner, you can have order in a very tiny little place. I have been working in a public school, and that's why we wanted to be part with the group, because I did that. I trained teachers from a public school, and we are starting the first 0 to, it was 4 months to 3 years in a public school in a place that is one of the most dangerous places in San Diego, in Logan Heights, which is a fantastic experience, and the change of the teachers is amazing. So I really feel like we need to do this much more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. I would just like to say it's now 1:15 the hour, wherever you are. So if I understand, if you have to leave, that's fine. I would like to still continue these reflections for anyone who would like to stay on. So just so you know, so we'll continue with group 3. Is there anyone from group 3 that would like to speak?
I'm not sure I can summarize. We had, but I will try. We had representatives. I suppose we were very, like everyone else, an international group from Mexico, from the reservation for Native Americans in the United States, Texas. We were, and then Haiti and Ivory Coast and Senegal as well. And so we were talking more about the importance of just being there. Jennifer said that she liked very much the principle that you had enunciated of just start where you are. Do what you can with what you have. And that the Montessori teaching and the dignity that it gives to the children and to the teachers, and ultimately then to the community, is what we should be all focused on, maybe particularly as we're working in very difficult situations at times, and we might not have all of the right equipment. We won't have the understanding that you can have in different countries, but just to talk to people, to keep the message going, was very, very important.
Wonderful. Thank you, Patricia, for sharing. Group 4, is there anyone who would like to share?
I can, Kamini, if you, I might ask you to step in or share a little more if I'm forgetting something. Is that okay?
Good.
Okay. So we had representatives from Mexico, Kenya, India, and we started talking about those questions that you sent us, and the basic principle is that principle of service and love. And that is something that we first have to do in whatever endeavor we're going to go out and pursue, and always thinking of what are those needs from the communities or families that we're serving, and start there instead of coming with our Montessori philosophy or principles. Start with what are the needs of that community and how we can meet them with what we can provide in our the little or a lot of knowledge we might have. We also talked about each of our initiatives, the ones that we are part of right now. We had a person from Mexico that's involved in social projects, and she was telling us how she's working with different communities to support, especially working with the parents and their mothers, the mothers' parents, and try to see how they can meet them and help them learn about Montessori so that they can apply that in their communities. We have someone from India that was sharing that she's currently involved in an initiative to help orphans. The initiative has 10 schools. It's a one classroom school, and there's 10 schools right now, and there's a primary trainer that is guiding that, and she's getting involved. And she was just sharing the amazing work they're doing and how they're helping the mothers safe, because they live in a situation where the money they make, sometimes their husbands take at that, and the communities are trying to support them in having a bank for the mother so that they can use that for the children. So I thought that was wonderful. We were talking about also an initiative in Guatemala that I'm part of, where we empower these women that live at risk community in the red zone in Guatemala, and we created a craft shop for them where they can work, and then also fund a little Montessori school, inspired Montessori school that they have. And they're selling the crafts and at the same time educating their children. And we're providing some parenting workshops and a little infirmary for the mothers, and just trying to give them the tools so that they can be the best parents they can be, as well as their children to get the best education they can. And we did talk about one of the things that is difficult is funding. So we were networking with wonderful Victoria Bars, that she works representing AMI to the UNESCO. And she was giving us a lot of feedback on how to find funding and how to spread the word and how to share the stories, and how she's very passionate about that initiative. And she was extremely motivational in the way she just shared the work she's doing and the work she's done in the past. And I just felt blessed to be able to talk to her for the few minutes that I had with her. So that's in a nutshell, that's the summary of what we did.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Veronica. Group 5. Is there someone who would like to share from group 5?
I think I'm from group 5. I didn't know my group number.
I probably you are, because
silence, it's me.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So I have our group had representatives from the United States, Kenya, France, Philippines, India. There's a project in Bosnia that I'm involved with, so I guess we had representation in that sphere as well. We focused a lot directly on the questions that were asked in the start of the presentation, and the question of what are the most important principles that Montessori can offer in your area, and how transformative it can be to a community, as in a community way, not just child focused, but in a sense that it does bring the child to the front, and it brings awareness to a community about the potential of a child and the importance of early childhood education. One of the things, I'm just looking at my notes here, was it was very interesting. We touched on the transformation of the adult and the lifelong process of working on our inner child, so that Montessori could not only help the children in the community, but help adults. One of our participants made a really interesting comment, which was, when you look at Montessori happening as an adult and you are involved in it, you say to yourself, wow, how could I have ended up differently had I been exposed to all this during my young years. So I think that's really, really interesting and speaks to the journey of Montessori for everyone, whether you're a child or an adult, the continuing journey and of working on our inner child. So that was really interesting. We also touched on a really interesting topic that was the urban versus rural areas and implementing Montessori programs in an urban setting versus a rural setting. And it was very interesting that several of the participants in our classroom saw that it was much easier to implement programs in rural areas versus urban. And we talked quickly about why that was. I was really intrigued by that because my initial project is in an urban area, and we talked about the distraction that children often are exposed to in urban areas versus the calmness and almost oneness with nature in a rural area that makes it really easy for children or easier for children to immerse themselves in Montessori and just the challenges of bringing Montessori to an urban environment and how that happens. And just the other question was what organizations and individuals have helped your work. We talked about EsF, seemed a great platform for everyone. We even interconnected in our own group, and it was really lovely to see people who are just starting their journey to have the opportunity to have somebody say, I'm willing to give my time just to tell you about my journey, I think is really, really great. There's also the Montessori Global Growth Fund, which was brought up, and then also just networking within friends and colleagues has been really important. And I guess one of the takeaways is also how to bring it to a community, even if you have a luncheon or a meeting or a presentation, just to start somewhere, to take that first step is really important. So I hope I covered everything. I'm not sure. I'm very bad at sticking to one topic. So
it's also a lot.
Yeah, so much,
45 minutes in 2 minutes. So I think you did a great job. Then I think group 6, Judy, I know was in that group because I was also in that group. So Judy, would you like to tell a little bit about, well, what we discussed and also what you do in Kenya?
Okay, my name is Judy. I'm a Kenyan. I work with indigenous community. We work with nomads, and before that, I was in Corner of Hope, and I started Montessori there. And later, the MIA decided they requested me to come to the northern Kenya, where there are some people who live there. They can't access, little children can't access education. And then I agreed, I came with one of them. That is Terry, she's in the group, I think. And then Stella and another one joined us. We are not with him here, it was Tony. We started Montessori schools in Samburu. We call Samburu, the community called themselves Samburu. And they live in the bush areas. They don't have houses. They have to move from places to place to take their cattle, to feed their cattle, because it is very dry. So they have to go to green pastures where they can feed their children, their cattle, sorry. So the children don't get time to go to school. So we had to go to different, we call them manyatas. They stay in clans. We had to go and explain ourselves, show them our materials, and tell them the importance of Montessori education, how it can work everywhere. It can work in the bush. It can work in town. We used to tell them a child in America is the same as in your community. So it is really helps people. And they were very much interested, and we talked to them, and we started with a small group of organization of 4 people. And later, now it's a big school. We have 3 schools, and we are hoping to open another one soon. And we have already introduced one of our parents who have opened a Montessori school in the town, not in the bush. Is in the town. That's the place now we are in, because in our school we can't access network. That's why we came to this school. It's a new school and it has 1 month. It's a new Montessori, and we are going to help them. And the parents of this area are very happy. They have come with a lot of children because of hearing of the Montessori in the bush. So they really like Montessori. And in that area, we have from this Montessori school, the organization has started 3 projects now. We have Montessori and we have health group where they always come to monitor our children. We have 2 nurses, we have 2 volunteers who come to help them. And the health group work with under 5 years. So they really come to a school to monitor the health of our children. We also have another group we started, it is now 1 year, which started to educate the parents about their milk. When they milk their milk, they can always help the wild animals. And that group is working now with some people. The organization buy their milk, and then the milk is going to we have an orphanage of elephants where the small elephants are kept, and the organization takes the milk to the elephant to feed them, because we see that everything is working together. We can work with the animals, we can to help the wildlife, we can work with the parents, with the health, and we are grateful. We are hoping to do more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you. Elise just told me that we were actually group 8 and not group 6. So if there's someone from group 6 that would still like to speak, that would be great. I mean, it could be that they already left because we did go a little bit over time. So if no one is there, that's fine. And is there someone from group 7? If not, that's also fine.
We're here. I can certainly step in and say a few things, as long as some of my wonderful group maybe can fill in areas that I am not covering. We talked about wonderful things, also so inspiring and so humbling to hear about what everyone's doing and the ways that they've found to connect in their local communities and to serve and support each other. We had Denmark, Japan, Nigeria, and the United States represented, Florida and kind of Philadelphia, I guess both of those. And we talked about some of the challenges in helping families, especially very impoverished families, who may not have the time or the interest in early childhood education, and providing opportunities for children during that absorbent mind to really engage with things that will help them with their development and connecting with parents and proper developmental practices. And so we talked about ideas with that. Mayumi gave us a wonderful reminder that I wish I had included in my presentation about the importance of children and involving children in building relationships, and how they serve as a wonderful segue for opening up and engaging in conversation with others in the community, how they are a part of those relationships that we build and strengthen, and how their voices really make a difference in the work that we are doing.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, I will quickly show 2 last slides. I promise it's only going to be 3 minutes. So let me share my screen to close this session. And I hope you've all really enjoyed your conversations. Let me just share this. There we go. So I just quickly wanted to show you the EsF calendar for 2023. So in April, we plan to do another of these online gatherings, and you're all super welcome to join. It will be, again, a session with the same setup as this one, so a short presentation and then discussion groups. We will keep you updated on the exact date. Then we will also be at the International Montessori Congress in Thailand to organize some breakout sessions there as well related to ESF. And then in September, we will start with Voices of ESF 2023, which will be a 3-month online program, which is more intensive than this session. So it's a series of sessions, and also some working groups will be involved. So we'll also keep you updated on that. And then the last thing I would like to share with you is that we're working on this online community platform. We're now in the process of setting it up. We've used it for Voice of ESF last year, and of course there were some glitches, but I think it has a lot of potential to become a place where people can really find each other, and where you can basically discuss or have these types of discussions also online, and see what others are doing worldwide. So that is what we're working on, and also on this we'll keep you updated. Oh, that was it, and I think it's also time now to stop. But thank you so much everyone for being here, and we've recorded the plenary parts of this session, so we'll send you the recording as well if you're interested to watch it again, or if you want to share it with others. So yeah, thanks a lot, and I hope to see you again in the next session. Bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you all so much.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
You're very
See you
inspiring. All of
again.
you. Very
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Elske.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Good to see you here. Bye everyone. Bye bye.